Do you want to repeat what you just said before we hit record?
Let's see how we do no show notes.
Welcome to the Dropout Drop-In. No show notes, no voice, one fully functioning working eye.
Yeah, they both work. Just one, like, if you're wondering why I'm darker on screen, it's because with a light on, I'll just do it for the sake of the bit. Considerably more noticeable that one of my eyes has a pool of blood in the corner. So we're leaving lights off today. For everyone who's concerned, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't impact my vision. It just, a blood vessel broke. It's going to be there for a couple of weeks.
And it definitely doesn't impede your ability to talk about Dropout, Misfits and Magic, everything going on, which we're going to get to very shortly.
Also, just so everyone knows, I'm never going to point the right way. This is not pink eye, just so everyone knows.
But what timing for this to happen to you with Time Quangle dropping?
Shout out to everyone who got in my comments to be like, is it pink eye? Including one person who was like, would it be inappropriate for me to make a pink eye joke? And I was like, only because you'd be the fifth person to do it. Like,
your audience knows you. This community is strong. It's just so people don't spoil in the comments. Jordon hasn't finished all of Time Quangle yet, and I have, so we'll have a little bit of a conversation about it, but we're not going to go full tilt spoilers for Jordon's sake, so you can enjoy the end of it. But we have a lot of catching up to do. Usually on the Dropout Drop-In, we go beat for beat with what Dropout is posting and what they've been up to, like new episodes that have been dropping. But Jordon and I have had very busy, full lives reporting on things that aren't just Dropout.
The reason why Liz's voice is shot is because we caught up for 40 minutes because we haven't spoken to each other in like 2 months.
And we have, in fact, not been going beat for beat with every drop of episodes that Dropout's been putting out, just because that's what happens when you're a reporter with a mandate broader than one streamer. So what we're going to do on the Dropout Drop-In this fall is really focus our efforts on covering season 2 of Misfits and Magic and everything Dimension 20 as we build up to the incredible January moment at Madison Square Garden on Sleeping City Live. So we're really going to be building forward.
Is it? I don't know if you've seen my little clip of Carlos Luna, but I said to him, Unsleeping City, and he goes, but is it going to be that? And I was like, that's what the posters say. And he's like, but is it? So who knows? I think we're getting quangled again.
You think we're getting quangled in New York City?
I think we are.
That's going to be the title of this episode is, Are We Getting Quangled in New York City? No one will understand it, and the SEO will hate it. It'll be so on brand for Dropout. It'll be perfect. Listen, I'm going to New York shortly, so I'll scope things out for us and see what the vibes are. But
Magic is creeping through into the. See if you can find K2. She's there.
I'll be looking for K2. I'll be looking for Kugrash. I will be in the vents. I'll be in the sewers. It'll be great. That's what you do when you go to New York, right? I say as a Canadian who's fully only been a handful of times. That said, let's catch up on what we've been covering and what we've been doing, and then we'll get to Dropout in a few minutes. I think a lot of folks that follow us, at least they follow your Patreon. If not, I hope they do, because you're posting interviews there 24/7. You've had a lot of cool interviews drop over the last few weeks, including one with everyone's favorite cast of storytellers on Worlds Beyond Number. Jordon, you finally got your sit down with the crew, including Brennan.
It took 6 months, but I got them. Like, they are the busiest people in the world. There was no Lou Wilson. It was very funny because on my Patreon, I make a little thing where I'm like, hey, do you have questions you'd like me to ask? And I was like, it's Worlds Beyond Number crew minus Lou. And obviously, if you follow the Worlds Beyond Number Patreon, you are aware that Lou only shows up to the first interview and then like a special guest shows up afterwards. So a bunch of people were like, okay, but are you getting a special guest? And I was like, no, this isn't a bit. Lou isn't available. There's no bit here. It's Brennan, Abria, Erica, and Taylor Moore, their producer, and like super fun. Like, it is, I think, my favorite interview I've ever done, because it's just us being silly for like 51 minutes or something. Absurd.
It's so many good bits, so many good games, and so many good vibes, because this was also coming off of PAX West, where you saw Brennan. I don't know if you saw him, like, talk to him at PAX West, but you were in the vibe. You saw Abria, you saw the whole gang.
Yeah, Abria and I got to hug and yell at each other. It was very fun. Threats were thrown about. Someone described me as when two dogs see each other, when I saw a Bria that like I popped up. Brennan was very briefly at the same party that I was at on Saturday night at PAX West, or excuse me, that was at Gen Con. So
much has happened since the last time we recorded.
I know.
This is Gen Con, not PAX West.
Yes, PAX West, a different story. But yes, that all happened at PAX West. But yeah, Brennan was there for, I think, about 7 seconds before Brennan realized he needed to flee from the building because everyone in the building had just turned their gaze of like, Brennan is here. I have to shoot my shot. Which, like, I get it. But oh man, that must be a bummer for him to not be able to live in very specific instances, but like has to run from those places.
I cannot imagine how difficult it must be to be someone, like really any of the Dropout cast, but specifically Brennan, and like go to these events and have a job to do and be around all the people who follow your work and really like care about you and just feel that on that extensive of a scale like that. I cannot imagine it.
Yeah. And I think, for Brennan, and this is just to like heap praise upon him, I think he specifically wants every meeting, like every time he meets someone, to feel like good. And so like I think that's why you see like his wild memory of like trying to remember everyone's names that he's ever met before. And like I think he wants it to be like as meaningful for you as you could possibly have it, because he's meeting 100 people that day who are like, I love your work so much, and he wants each of those people to walk away feeling like they were cared about, and that's gotta be exhausting.
So it's so sweet and it's so hard, and it's also why if you ever meet me in person, like one of the first 5 things I'll tell you is like I have the worst memory of anyone you've ever met in your life. I've been confessed so many times I will not remember. Not because I don't want to, because I won't. It's a fact. You're gonna have to remind me and be like, this is where we met, this is what we talked about, and then I'll be with you. But Lord, it's so hard to do these kinds of events and remember the room you're going to, let alone 50 people you met yesterday. So I'm great with faces though. I can get a face and be like, I know you, but I don't know where or why or how.
I'm bad with faces and names, so if you meet me, I won't know who you are. If Jordon and I
ever make it into the same room, we will not recognize nor know each other. That's right. You were at PAX with Iffy doing, so I'm actually live also, which you guys got an even bigger crowd, I think, maybe than when you were at PAX East. Did you?
Yeah, PAX East was 750. This was a little over 1,000. It also was fully like capped, and people had to be turned away. BDG was on vacation. I don't know where, but it was a beach somewhere. He looked very happy, so he was not in Seattle. So I got to sit in as fact checker, which was very fun. I got to do some actual fact checking. In like live in the moment, which was delightful.
And how did that go for you? Did you check the facts and were they indeed correct?
I did my best. I feel like I know I missed one. But it wasn't like contentious on the stage. Someone came up during Q&A and pointed out that we had missed something. But there was one that I did get to fact check. It was about oh man. Instantly I forgot. It was something. And like the question was like, was it based on, it was based on a book originally, and it listed a bunch of other things that it could have been based on. And the point was that those things didn't exist, or they did. Who knows? I looked it up and I did it. I did it in the moment. It was very exciting. And you saw, if he photoshopped my head onto BDG's body, which was truly an honor.
Incredible work. Absolutely incredible work by Iffy. I'm so glad that you guys were able to scale up. We talked a lot in our chat after PAX East about how the scale did not quite match the demand for just how popular Iffy's presence, the show, all these things were. So, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Iffy posted that you could have had an even bigger venue than what you did at PAX West. Like there were people still turned away.
Yeah. It was like 1,000. It was I think the room was a little over 1,000, and there was a good sized chunk of people that did not get into the room. And Iffy was running late, and like was running past all of those people and had to like apologize as he was running past, because he was trying to get into the room, because I was vamping on stage, waiting for him to get there. Before we get to Dropout, let's talk about who you made laugh on a red carpet.
Jordan, I've been through, you can tell I've been through it, man. It's been a wild go around. For those of you that don't follow me outside of what we do here on Dropout. I cover film festival and awards season, which means I'm talking to people in some of your favorite films and franchises on red carpet and press junkets and all these different things. So Toronto International Film Festival, obviously Canada, this is a big one for me. And this year we did 13 red carpets in 6 days. Lots of people y'all know, like Sandra Oh, Barry Keoghan. We were on the We Live in Time carpet with Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh, Selena Gomez's carpet for Amelia Perez. But one of my most wonderful moments, which is on Instagram and probably will be on YouTube at some point, was the On Swift Horses red carpet, which was a world premiere directorial feature debut, and we made Will Poulter laugh, which Will Poulter from The Bear, from Guardians of the Galaxy, from Maze Runner.
From not the best comedy, according to the Emmys.
Okay, this is not a The Bear debate podcast, but maybe a future episode, depending on what guests we can bring on. But no, Will Poulter is exceptionally lovely. Like, you get in my good books when you thank everyone in front of and behind the camera before you leave, and he was being obviously very rushed out of the carpet. He made a point to try and get to as many people as he could. If not, he did go to everyone, which he didn't have to do and made a point to do. So no, he was exceptionally lovely. He thanked every single person that worked the carpet, people that were holding mics and cameras, and like just some people, it's not even that people don't have like the grace to do that, but just to kind of make your own pacing so you can do that is exceptionally lovely to me. So making him laugh, and then just seeing how respectful and lovely he is, and how even just like the eye contact he makes with the person he's talking to, he's very in the moment with everyone who gets time with him. So I love learning that about celebrities. It's very nice. Even like, Andrew Garfield couldn't stop for more than half of the carpet and apologized that they were pushing him into the premiere, that he couldn't stop. And same with Florence Pugh, and same with Jacob Elordi. They were pushing him in, and he was waving and trying to say hi to people as he was leaving. And they don't have to do that. Lots of people don't do that. They just go. But the people that do, it's like, oh, very nice. You see us as people, and we see you as people. It's very nice. It's very cool. I love it.
You ready for a real smooth transition back to Dropout? The reason I've never done a Michael Schawbach interview, director of Dimension 20, is because he wants the questions in advance, because he wants to make sure that he properly thanks everyone who is involved in the production. And so if he knows you're going to ask about like a specific thing, he doesn't want to forget a name. And so he wants to make a list of like all the names that he wants to thank, which is very nice. But I am not professional enough to have questions in advance like that. So I'm too scared to ask for an interview with him.
Very funny. It's also very good to know, and it's a sign of a great director when people are willing to give credit like that. Round of applause, a round of snaps for the director, man. Oh my God, my voice is really going here. I'm so sorry. The remainder of this episode is sponsored by the Halls pack that is on my desk. Please send me some PR. I am burning through Halls like the world is ending over here. You guys have Halls in America. You have to. Or, okay, good. Because sometimes I say things like that and I just assume, and people are like, no, it's swashbuckler ale here. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about in America? All your shit's weird sometimes. As we head into the fall season, there's a lot of work that like both Jordan and I are doing, Dropout and broader. Like, I mean, we're going into award season. There's all kinds of stuff. Film festivals that are popping up for me. Jordan, you've got like interviews on the way, and even more like actual play-wide work that's coming to your Patreon.
Yeah, talked to the McElroys a few weeks ago. I've got Amy Vorpal and Danielle Radford of Goblin Mode. One is live already. One will probably be live when this gets edited, but if not, it's very soon. And then, some more Worlds Beyond Number stuff in the distant-ish future, but future, as well as things I can't talk about yet. But yes, wider TTRPG actual play stuff.
And we're really getting into our bag here because we're entering a new season of Dimension 20. Well, we have Time Quangle happening, which is a chunk here and then a chunk later on. But we have our new season, a Bria-led season, Misfits and Magic Season 2, coming to accompany us through the fall as we wait for our beloved January time together, Madison Square Garden. I know there's like a lot of conversations been happening about them bringing this season back. So like, let's get into it and talk about our predictions for the season and what we think about them bringing it back. Jordan, I'll let you start because I know that you have maybe a little bit more context than I do around like how this season is unfolding.
So first of all, the big scoop I've got, it was in fact originally 10 episodes and it ballooned out to 11 because they knew that it needed to be one more episode. So I did it. But yeah, I'm really excited. Obviously, a lot of the conversation focuses around not giving any more air to a transphobic writer and the universe that she built, which, by the way, she didn't invent magic schools. Like, let's be clear. She stole most of her, not steal. She was inspired by other things. Like,
no, we can use the word stole. And I'm going to pause you right there because I went to Edinburgh for the first time during Fringe Fest. And my big takeaway from that trip was that I knew that, and obviously when you go, you see like there's plaques and all kinds of different stuff of like, these are graves that she stole names from. Julie found a real person's grave and thought that's going to be the name of the biggest villain in my universe. And you see the coffee shops that things were written in, like, and all this stuff. But I absolutely mind blown, like seeing Edinburgh in real life, having seen many aesthetic TikTok or Pinterest photo over the year of the city, how one for one that city is with how that universe is designed. I could not believe it. I've also, been to Universal Studios. I've seen some of the theme parks and things like that. And I was absolutely gobsmacked to the point of being angry during points of the trip. And my partner was like, it's just like a really interesting reaction that you're having. And I was like, it is. I'm furious that I never understood Canadian here. I thought it was like unique, obviously. And my one interesting world's literally one for one. So yes, we can use the word stole.
Obviously.
We can use the word stole, at least I think, on this podcast. I think it's accurate.
Fair. But so obviously discussion of like not giving that universe any more breath than it already has, which is, I mean, a lot. Let's be very clear, it's popular. But I really love what Abria has done. Well, first of all, I obviously love the first season of Miss Mag. I think it's absolutely delightful. And I love that this one is 3 years after that, 3 years after the holiday special. And the universe has opened up and we're not at school anymore. It is not a, like, for lack of a better word, white savior story of like, here is the chosen one who's coming into the school, like vibes. It is I believe the phrase that I used was, you fucked up magic and now it's windy. And so now there's like big magical storms and things that are happening out in the regular world, everywhere, because magic just is out loose now. So I think it's much more focused on I don't want to say focused on a real world, but like that impact of what magic and the real world, like that crossover, which I think immediately diverges from that series, as well as like makes a really interesting and unique and original world to play in.
I think we've talked a few times throughout the course of covering Dropout around like how sometimes like conversation is not set or settled in full because we don't have all the context yet. And I'm trying to remember, I know there was a moment covering, maybe it was Fantasy High. It was Fantasy High in the part 1, part 2 finale. And there was a lot of discourse around part 1 over that final fight and finale and what was happening with, the treatment of the villains that were also just other kids, right? Versus when we saw part 2 of the finale, it kind of, allowed the conversation to have fuller context, which didn't change some people's minds. And for others, it really like offered more context that was needed to finish some thoughts. And I think about that a lot with the discourse that's happening around this season, because it's very hard for anything in entertainment, period. Actual play, feature film. This happened with Night Bitch at TIFF. The trailer drops and the internet has an immediate reaction in response to it. Night Bitch, Amy Adams' new film, had a very immediate, loud reaction of this is a horrible trailer. It's going to be a horrible movie. And then it premieres at TIFF and the reviews are outstanding and people are saying, wow, it's actually quite a nuanced film and a great performance and all these things we didn't get from the trailer. And the full circle that took a long time in internet time to get to was sometimes you need to allow context to present itself before you so loudly create like conversation that's not fully baked. I think with Misfits and Magic, there's like a couple different things that are happening. There's like the very grounded outrage around like how this universe is not need to be in a spotlight. But I'm like very curious once we start gaining the context around like how they're moving into something newly devised by Abria, like what is the political answer of this season, which it ultimately will have. It's not a season of actual play that's just about magic and they're doing spells and they're solving problems. Like, Burrow's End was highly political. Everything Abria's touched has been extremely, I don't just want to use the word political, but it's the one that's coming to mind right now. It's always had something deeper and real and offered these questions for people to take with them and sit with. And I'm really interested to see how this season of Misfits and Magic offers that opportunity to people. And like, I don't know what it's going to be. I'm excited to see what Abria wants us to think about and what Abria is going to challenge with this. And I don't think that we're being led in any other way forward. Like, there's no reason to believe that Abria's created a season of actual play that's not going to offer that opportunity. It's kind of one of the pieces that I've gotten from all of her work across.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of when the trailer for Burrow's End came out and people were mad that they were using 5e and they were like, here's all these other systems where you can play as little cute animals. And like, then finally we get to the point where like, oh, Abria chose 5e because it is a combat conquest simulator, and she wanted to talk about the inherent colonial nature of 5e in her actual play in a brilliant way. And yeah, I think this is the same exact thing. What a weird thing that it keeps happening to Abria. I wonder what's different about her than the other normal DM at Dimension 20. But yeah, that idea that I think Abria is so thoughtful and smart, and has just as much things to say politically as Brennan does, in a very clever way. And I'm thrilled. I'm ecstatic for more Miss Mag. I think it's going to be great.
Also putting out in the season that is most connected to the idea of magic, which is for Dropout. We said this off camera. Dropout doesn't always nail the timing of like the vibes of the season of Dimension 20 and the vibes of what's happening in the real world. So excited to see like what kind of pairing happens watching this in the fall versus like greater magical discourse that's going to be happening through like Halloween season. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about witches, and we watching Miss Mag same week. It's going to be great.
It'll be great. I personally will be having Hocus Pocus and Miss Mag on in the same day.
Amazing.
So, can't wait.
My big regret for my Worlds Beyond Number interview, one big regret is that I didn't get to the question, do you have tips for Halloween costumes? It was going to be my last question. We were already over time, and then Taylor asked Brennan what it was like to do prophecy, and I was like, this is objectively a more interesting question than what I was going to ask, so we should do that instead of my like, how do you dress up as the fox? I'm like,
God. I do want to circle back on something that you said. I'm really hopeful for this season of Dimension 20 because I think that it's obvious that Abria's criticisms against Abria are often unjust, unfound, and are often people's own like unpacked notions of like all of these different things, like gender in the actual play space, race in the actual play space, like all of these different things. And poor Abria does such a like swift job having to be the front face of property and then also like deal with all that in a way that like her counters don't, period. And I think Miss Meg is really interesting because I didn't watch it in real time. Obviously, we all know that I'm newer to the Dropout universe than not, and actual play than not. But even in my rewatch of Miss Meg and like going through kind of the archives of conversations that I could find, it's really interesting how that cast was treated and discussed and talked about, and how the characters were talked about, and really how those characters were built for certain character traits that were then like literally demonized by parts of the internet. And I'm like, it's really interesting like seeing this cast come back, and I'm just really interested to see how like we're doing a time jump, so obviously the characters have grown. Hopefully the audience that's coming from season 1 and new audience is coming in with like a fresher perspective on like who can play what kind of characters in actual play, and what those characters can be grounded in, whether it's like a pleasing set of qualities or something a little more edgy that is like a little bit of a palette that you have to get used to. optimistic that like this season's gonna like really challenge people in that way as well, to like unpack some of their own biases against not just like characters but like actual play actors and performers, and really like bringing back such a cool, talented, literally some of the most talented people in this industry, not just in actual play but in like voice acting and character work, period.
Absolutely
One
agree.
season.
Yeah, I don't want to come off as Danielle Radford slander. She's so incredibly talented. She's so good in Goblin Mode. I adore her. But the fact that we're getting Brennan, Erica, and Abria after now them doing so many, because like they talk about this. I saw them talk about this in a Screen Rant interview that Miss Mag season 1 was a lot of the time was the first time they had like really met public for several of them, and now I think Brennan's the way he phrased it was like not it was something weird. It was basically like I've played make believe more with them than any other people in like the last year since then. Obviously, like they started Worlds Beyond Number, they've done a bunch of other shows together, Calamity and Burrow's End and Ravening War. Like there are times when they've all played either with just them or whatever. Anyway, I'm really curious what that does to their storytelling, because they're not only inherent trust of each other, but also called shots, like of like, oh, I see what you're trying to do here. I'm diving in head first of like, oh, I get what you want me to do, and I'm going to do it. Like I'm going to do whatever is best for the story. Yeah, I'm super curious how that builds out in this season.
I don't think that's slanderous to Danielle at all, just stating that like there is an unequal balance of actual playtime shared around that table. Like, yeah, that's very true.
I just don't want people to think that I don't think Danielle is also wildly talented. She's so good. Her character, Busy the Skeleton in Goblin Mode, so good. I love it so much.
No, it's interesting. Like I think about Mentopolis a lot. And one of the reasons why I enjoyed Mentopolis as much as I did was because it was the first season of Dimension 20 I watched. So I didn't have a sense of dynamics at the table. Everyone was equally new to me. So I had no idea that Brennan and Siobhan had played a disproportionate amount of times to like Brennan and Hank Green, who were meeting for the first time, right? And like part of the joy of that season is watching the whole table find the dynamic as it goes on and on and on, and watching how the players that have more experience playing with each other and players that are newer to the table or newer to like meeting each other find a groove together. So yeah, it's like interesting to think about that, but the context of Miss Mag, because like now we know, like even like just in terms of Dropout familiarity, like what shows have people been on and not on, and like people's comfort zones and things. So now I'm really interested to see how Abria decides to like play with that dynamic and shake things up, and hopefully it just means that there's more sharp corners for people to have to navigate around, because it's more fine-tuned to like, I'm going to throw you this bone because I know that you're going to play with it in this way. And like, I'm going to design a plot foil that's going to like really force you to think in a specific direction or not, or challenge you to go a new way. So I think it'll be fun.
It's going to be delightful. I can't wait. 11 weeks of it too. Ooh.
Do you want to make any predictions for the season? Do you want to be so bold before we get started and have spoilers coming our way?
Yeah,
what do you think?
Tabby's going to die. Because
all right, we're going there right away.
Abria's not going through a season and not killing Carlos Luna. There's just no way. Tabby dies this season. I think. Also, I mean, look, we'll talk more about Tabby, I'm sure. But oh man, in the trailer, you see Brennan's face, just that same face as when Polly the Bear came out, of just like, God damn it, like just like I have been bested at my own job again. Like, it's so good.
I mean, we are a broken record when it comes to saying that Abria Iyengar is pushing Dimension 20 as a show. What happened with Burrow's End was astronomical in terms of how it pushed the entire television intersection forward for how you produce an actual play. And like now we're seeing these elements that are like so fascinating, so funny. They really opened my mind to like things that I'm not going to say until we see it in full. Like again, like I want full context before I really make some like statements, but based on the trailer, like things like the projections, things like the art, things that we've seen grown over the past year of what's been released, which was really, filmed in a shorter amount of time, but for us, the past year, so exciting. And also important to reference that Miss Mag season 1 was, if it wasn't the first season, it was one of the first seasons where like props were brought to the Dimension 20 table, and like you saw how excited Brennan was. They'd be like, oh my god, we're getting wands, like this is crazy. And it was like such a thing for them to have like certain tools that Abria brought, and to go from that to like Tabby is such an arc, gonna be a wild progression of like how far can we stretch the literal tools on the set to make this feel magical.
I mean, Miss Mag, it's the holiday special, but still, like, you know, like part of season 1, whatever you want to call it, like the holiday special, they literally have someone in costume behind the panels, and they're projecting a light to make that shadow on the dome. Like, they couldn't do that anymore because the panels don't work like that anymore. But like, to think about, like, that is where they were at, to now the full scale projections of, you know, like Brennan's face, a flashback from 5 years ago on the dome wall. Like, that level of like advancement in such a short amount of time is, I mean, remarkable. And I think, yeah, like you said, like Abria is one of the main drivers of that. Obviously, like, I think Abria and Brennan's unending competition with each other is a huge driver of what can we do next.
It's so exciting as a viewer to like watch that go. Like, again, like, hard to say the order of which they shot things, or like how fast progressions were going behind the scene versus what we're seeing, but like going toe for toe with like Abria season, Brennan season, Abria season, and like watching the dial get cranked higher and higher. It's very, very, very cool. I would love to talk to Carlos about how the hell they're managing the growth that's happening, because it's very cool.
It's amazing.
Pairing that with, we'll talk about Time Quangle a little bit, the growth that we're seeing in how Time Quangle was produced, and that, God, I want to talk to Carlos about Time Quangle and how they did the live show, because that specifically what they're doing, or what they did on that tour, is my vein of expertise. So I'm like watching that show and watching the way they're like lighting things and the projections and the camera angles. I'm like, oh, it's so interesting how they brought the dome into all these theaters and made it in a way where they could actually like pack it up and set it up within a span of hours. Very cool. Very cool.
I posted this clip, but like Carlos talking about how he was originally just gonna go to like pick up the tapes that they were recording to bring them back, and change that into, what if every possible character was up for any given night and I have to sit backstage, somehow be able to see what characters they have pulled so that I can put it on the screen. And then that is also the setting also will be randomly generated, and the setting music is what we will walk off stage to at the halfway point. Like, that's such a funny, and I mean, obviously turned out amazing. And what a concept of just like, we don't know what we're gonna do tonight either. So much fun. But yeah, it's such a funny like scale up.
Absolute chaos mode production that you brought on yourself.
Yeah.
That is my brand of production. I'm like, I have the craziest idea. Let's do this. And everyone's like, that's going to be immensely difficult and challenging. And I'm like, sounds like my problem. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly my brand of how I approach producing live events. I'm sure someone's done the math on like what the full number of combos would be for, like, given the amount of characters and settings and things they have, but then you have to multiply that by exactly what you said, like the amount of different music, assets on screens, like all these different things, character sheets, like the amount of individual assets, whether that's digital or like physically in a binder or whatever, that you have to create to accommodate that full number is absolutely bizarre. And I'm obsessed with it.
I think of having, how many different blocks of spell cards Emily Axford needs at any given moment. Obviously, like, you're watching Never After right now. Ilfa, the least amount of spell cards she needs, still needs spell cards, though. Like, you're far enough in to know that you can't stop Emily Axford from multi-classing into getting spell cards.
And for the talent to have, especially for Brennan, but I'm sure he has systems for knowing, like, if we're going to this world and setting up the story in such a way, but for the character actors, for each of them to have the recall of like, I'm going to be Little Red and that means XYZ, and also we're saying off the top that we're not spoiling the season, which means I can't pull an XYZ because that was later. Like, it's
you
hard
need to introduce the audience to characters they may have never met, and get them on board with that and the setting in the span of 5 minutes, because you also need to tell a 2-hour long story that needs to start right now, and
have a full arc for the audience to feel like they got what they paid for.
Yeah,
So
that is incredible. Yeah, like I haven't finished Time Quangle from last week, and we're getting a new episode, I think tomorrow. Like I don't.
thank God.
Yeah,
Thank God.
yeah,
Yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting to follow something that's growing so drastically and also like seeing like growth within growth. Like Dimension 20 is having its own exponential growth across like the stream. We're having this growth curve. It's like mad. And in the back of my head, I keep thinking like, and we've got more VIP on the way, which is like it's shocking
yeah,
that we're already going to go back into the VIP land
yeah.
fairly soon in only a few
I
weeks.
think they promised November, right? Like I think we got like
That's what Jordan promised me. So everyone can remember if Dropout doesn't give it to us in November, it's Jordan's fault because that's what you've been saying.
I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, no, I think it's November.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like we're getting more VIP. Gastronauts is coming soon-ish.
Very exciting.
Wait, I think we might have it. Do we have a release date on Gastronauts? We have to, because the trailer came out. For sure, we got the release date. I don't know when it is.
Press release. Hold on. Series premiere October 11th.
Yeah, like that's like 3 weeks from now, right? Like, yeah, and like I know I've said it on here, I've said it everywhere. Everyone has talked about that show in the same way that they talked about VIP before it came out. Of like, we made magic on that set. So like that's it. And then yeah, Nobody Asked is also somewhere in like it. I mean, it was one of the shows. It's like it's coming in 2024. And yeah, I mean, we've started to get more teases of that.
Still 2024.
It is still 2024. People who are involved in the show have started posting on social media pictures from the set. So that feels like we're getting that trailer in the next couple of weeks, probably. But yeah, I mean,
we have more Dropout Presents on the way.
Yeah, we got Adam Conover this week. We still have
Make Some Noise. It's on, which is like we haven't even talked about how great the season of Make Some Noise has been.
Yeah. Before we started, I said we needed to talk about the Pete Holmes episode because like roasting Sam Reich that hard for so long, truly such a like so funny. It's the hardest I've laughed in so long. It's delightful because Sam loves it. And that because he and Pete are such good friends for so long, Pete is able to bring such a specific kind of roast to it of just like you look like the mayor of a small town in a musical where it's so funny and so good. Also, hey, did you realize Sam's suits were inverted? That his game changer.
I saw that post. Was it you that posted that, or was it someone on Reddit?
No, someone posted it, and I saw it, and my brain melted out of my ears. Yeah,
thank you for pointing it out, because very good note for sure. I think another piece of Make Some Noise that I've really been enjoying, which we did say a few weeks ago, was how they're starting with the mini game, right? And they kind of reinvented the format. I think as the shows come along, like that format's really, really hit its stride, and you can see how it really does its job of warming people up and bringing people together and apart in a way that the old format was kind of suffering from a little bit. Like, I think it's really working. Well, yeah, I'm very pleased with how we've seen it across different casts.
Yeah, and also just some like brilliant casting. Putting this past week, this week's episode, like having 3 members of the big team, like they've got their Dropout Presents in December. But like having the 3 of them on, it just made such like instant. They already know what to do. Like you don't need to you don't even need the warm-up game to get them on the same page. You just got them we're in the right headspace, which just turned into so many beautiful moments of a third person stepping into a 2-person scene or a second person stepping into a 1-person scene that just, it worked so well. Such a good episode. And shout out to Iffy for making every prompt horny. He ran with that challenge.
Listen, I think the greatest thing about this show is how they cater things to cast, right? To make sure people can shine. And that is example A of catering something to your cast and letting them shine. But to your other point, I think it was specifically this cast really bent the rules around like 2 people are supposed to have a turn and a third person hops in and out. And it was very cool to see that kind of played with and them knowing each other well enough to know I'm going to jump in with this and it's going to change it in this way. Very, very cool way to bend the rules and make some noise. You don't see that often. And it was a nice kind of change of pace.
Even got Sam involved. Sam was on the couch.
I loved that.
It was very good. I won't repeat what Sam was doing on the couch, but Sam was on the couch.
This video might get monetized, so we're not going to. This is not Iffy's show. That'll be the first episode of the Dropout Drop-In that gets demonetized. Is whenever we get an interview with Iffy. It'll be wild. But we're at time, and my voice is cracking along here. So what do we have coming up? We're going to be following Miss Meg season 2 starting soon. Next week. Thank you. This episode will come out in a timely fashion, so that when we say next week, we mean next week. And we'll be following along time Quangle and the build up to New York City and kind of sprinkling some thoughts on everything else Dropout is doing along the way around that main conversation. So if you're watching the new season of Dimension 20, we hope you stick around for that. And you can subscribe to this channel for new episodes of the Dropout Drop-In, and you can subscribe to Jordan's Patreon where interviews land first. And that might be the first time I've ever remembered to plug both the things people can subscribe to for more Jordan-Liz content. Anything else we want to say before we go? What did I forget?
I think that's it. We did it. We won.
We did it. We did it.
Flawless.
And I can't wait to see what state we're in the next time we talk, Jordan. Hopefully I have a little bit more of a voice and you have a little bit more of an eye that's not plunged.
It's got to be better, right? It can't be worse, I say. We'll see. Stay tuned.
See you in the next episode.